Well, thank you all for coming on the on this March 23rd WDIC conference. The weather's not great, but we soldier on. And do we have any announcements or welcomes or introductions?
Just one announcement. Monday, the 28th, we'll be having first of our two-part series on critical race theory, which our office will be sponsoring, and our two guest panelists will be Toussaint Etienne from the University of South Carolina Law School and Cedric Powell from the Brandeis Law School at the University of Louisville. And so they will be leading the discussion about critical race theory on the 28th at 7 o'clock. And on April 13th, Gregory Parks, who is Associate Dean at the Wake Forest School of Law and a Cornell Law School grad, class of 08, will be leading the discussion. Again, that will also be at 7 o'clock on April 13th, which is a Wednesday. So I trust you all have gotten notice of this. And so just ask you to spread the word. And we hope to have a good, robust discussion that will do some demythologizing as well as explaining what critical race theory is.
Yeah, I saw that Professor Parks was coming, and I know him from Cornell Law School, but I was there because I overlapped with him in terms of admitting him to the law school. So it's good to see our alums come back.
Yeah,
successfully. We also want to, and I'm not going to be formal about it, but we also want to add the resolution to adopt Juneteenth as a paid employee holiday to the schedule, and we'll just add it to the agenda in a great location. But why don't we next, I entertain a motion for the minutes approval of February 23rd. And recommended it. Anybody second it? Okay. Any comments, any changes to the minutes? Veronica?
It doesn't have me listed as being there, but I'd like to be.
Okay, can you make that change, Brittany?
I will make that change, yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any other changes? Okay, then why don't we have the vote? I'll be abstaining because I was not there, but any all yays or all yeses to the approval of the minutes?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, any nays? Okay, minutes are approved unanimously with one abstention. And then why don't we go right into the discussion items? Finally, with the 2022 WDIC goals and budget. Rachel sent around the draft materials, and why don't we put it on the floor? And any discussion? I know Deanna, I assume you prepared the budget, and so maybe you want to at least talk a little bit about the draft 2022 budget.
Sure. Do you want me to do that after the goals or right
No,
now?
why don't you do it now, and then we'll handle the goals after the budget? Because I don't think that the budget should be that controversial.
No, well, the budget was modeled after the goals, so you'll know where that came from.
Okay, okay.
So,
So-
and so that
Then
was
why
why.
don't we deal with the goals first?
Okay.
Rachel, why don't you process the goals and tell us what changes were made during the last meeting and what we'll try to approve during this meeting.
Okay, let me just pull them up here. I thought I had printed them, but I did not. So we didn't actually make any changes, I don't think, during the meeting. We just kind of went over the 2021 goals with the additions that you had added. And so then I just tried to compile those into a new document that just had the 2021 or the 2022 goals there. And Deanna made a few edits, and then with her edits, that's what I sent to everybody.
Okay.
I don't know if there's much more to discuss, really, unless anybody had questions or concerns about it.
Did you
Yes,
want me to say?
Any questions or concerns? Yeah, do you have any comments about the edits that you made?
Sure. I just wanted to make them more like a concrete. Some of the things are actionable by our committee, like the Workforce Reading Discussion Program, a specific program that is done on behalf of WDIC. So when we talk about the work product from our committee, that we can show that we are meeting our objectives or that we're completing our specific tasks or whatever we have. And so that program, while I'm the staff person for it, is not a product of county administration specifically. You know, we know we support everyone, but just making sure those things were clear in the document. And then also just clarifying, making it more action oriented. So those are the main things. I did not take away anything. I asked one question specifically around, there was around what we're talking about, equality like sessions or panels like that. I didn't know what that was referring to. So I just asked when that came up, and I may have missed a part of a discussion because last meeting I was late because I was coming from the police review board meeting last month. And so I was trying to get clarity on what that was for and who that might be assigned to.
Yeah, Leslie initially brought that up during our January meeting about equality groupings, about small groupings that we would have to talk about equality issues. We didn't really assign it to anyone, although it would probably go to the leadership, I guess, of volunteers of this committee to talk about equality issues in small groupings with employees. And so that was the idea. And so there's, but again, it was just really a outside the box thought that we could possibly do this as a way of dealing with equality, as a way of dealing with it on a small basis, that we don't have these big groupings, that we have maybe groupings of 5 or 6 people, and really get down to having private conversations with people about equality issues.
So they weren't, because she was not referring to like affinity groups or anything like that.
No, she's not referring to affinity groups. She's really talking about having, again, small equality sessions that we would have with individuals to talk about, issues of equality in a small grouping, or at least, presenting it that way, as opposed to having a large group, which Leslie is here now. So maybe we can have her.
I could hear you all. I just wasn't on as a panelist, but I could hear the whole discussion.
Yeah, I mean, did I get the sense of what you were saying before, Leslie?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Did I capture the essence of what your idea was about the equality groups? Yeah, and I don't know, whether we would, obviously work with county administration and the staff to organize these groupings. But again, that's a little bit ahead of ourselves. But again, that's the idea of at least having small equality groupings.
That sounds good to me. Thank you for clarifying.
I also want to recognize that when my brain was on overload and I was dumping a lot of these things, it's, when we were at a place in the county that there was really a big need for a lot of this, a lot of some smarts for support systems that were smaller or that could be more vocal, more comfortable, people were feeling safer with, et cetera, et cetera. So there was a whole lot more, happening. I don't know, where things are with folks at the county, how people are feeling. So, they don't always have to, we don't necessarily have to go to all of them, all of these things. I just wanted to put out there that, they were all things that were put out as we were struggling.
Okay. Well, do we want to?
We're losing you, Henry.
Mhm.
We're having trouble hearing you.
Can you hear me? Oh yeah, I know. I got to stay in the middle. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, I've learned this from before. Do we want before we pass it? Why don't we talk about the budget, which is connected to the draft goals, to work goals? Deanna?
Yes, okay. WDIC is unique in that it's one of the, I think it's the only committee that has a goal. I mean, I'm saying as a budget associated with it directly. Like a direct, in other words, I don't think that any other of the program committees have like $10,000 or $12,000 assigned to their name, even though the funding does go through those different areas. And so we have spent very nominal amounts over the last couple of years. And so our plan has been to, since I've been on board the last year and a half, it was to look at the goals for the committee and just try to align the work that we say we're doing with the budget. And so I'll pull that up and share that with you if that's okay. And this is just my attempt to clarify what I think I hear. So my understanding is that right now we're going to complete the values rollout and they're going to be doing some wrap up work with the climate survey, which is also one of the other goals this goals is listed, supporting that and then getting started for 2023. And so we have $1,500 listed to each line item there. Specifically, I talked with Dominic Recchio. Originally, they'd asked for $2,000 per line item, but we didn't quite have enough. But I'm sure we'll figure out how to make ends meet for photography and signage, then materials for the offices, and as we wrap up that work. Now, specifically, we'd like to do some more organization-wide general training on training topics. I've heard specifically from different departments around the need to re-energize our training work at the county. I know there was an LGBTQ plus training several years ago that was enormously popular, so we'd like to do some more work in some of those areas, knowing that we have over the last year and a half done some targeted trainings in different departments based upon needs and done some of that work. Also, in my role, I have a training budget as a Chief Equity and Diversity Officer, so I'll be using some of those funding to supplement and augment to make sure that that work gets done. Then also we're in the process of doing the workforce reading and discussion program. We split the costs of that 1945 is being split with the city of Ithaca. And so that $1,945 is it was for the cost of books. We gave hardback books this year. They're to every employee that participated. The program hasn't been done in years past, and part of that is for our facilitator, Dr. Belisa Gonzalez. We also have a goal related to Heritage Month speakers. So we had $1,000 budgeted last year. I just continue that budget over for this year. We also, for Juneteenth week, there's some money here for speaker and honorarium based upon expenses from last year. Last year we had a little bit more money, but we didn't use all of the money. So I'll be, Dr. Clark, this is the line that he would pull from if, as the Juneteenth week festivities move forward. Then sponsorships and membership. My understanding is that in the past, we have done some work with the Diversity Consortium, then Sister Friends, and so we did not pull any money from that line item last year, but that is money is available. Then also in terms of membership, one thing that will reduce this amount is that we have a membership to the Diversity Consortium as one of the founding members, and so several $100s, and so we'll pay that from there. And then I listed here as an addition this year, the Facing Race Conference will be this year in November. There's an option to go in person and there's an option to attend virtually. And so I just listed 5 virtual memberships here. They're completed by April 1, and just putting as a consideration for the committee, knowing that if people want to go in person, they can. The GEAR conference is also coming up, but people have appeared to be more interested in the Facing Race conference this year. So I'll go, to the GEAR conference. I received a complimentary membership. If more people want to go, they're always welcome to. It's $225. Still spots available if we want to do that, but it seemed like if we had to choose a conference, Facing Race was the one because it's happened so infrequently, people wanted to be involved in. So that leads us to our budgetary total of $12,850. Again, this is using prior year's information, but then also trying to speak to some of the newer things that we're trying to do here as a committee. So I can make any updates, corrections, changes that you may wish to have happen. Again, just trying to align it with what I know our goals are for this year. Any questions?
Yes. How much money did we carry over from last year? Did we roll over from last year?
About $10,000.
Oh, really?
That's why I said they don't spend money.
Even with Juneteenth?
Because we only had, so everyone had split different costs between different groups. So
Right.
Office of Human Rights paid something. I paid for something. GIAC paid for something. When we before even started, every person said, I'm going to pay for this, I'm going to pay for that. So we paid for supplies related to the Juneteenth celebration, and then we also paid for part of the speaker fees. And then I ended up absorbing several costs as well. And so we just didn't have a whole lot. And so if there was more that people wanted to expense, they could have. And I said that at the meeting prior, but there were no more expenses that came through. And I can give you the exact total, but I know it's less than $2,000 because we don't spend a lot of money. Go ahead. Ann?
Thank you for putting this together, Gina. I was wondering about just a clarification on where you talk about the funds for education, LGBTQ education for staff and management. Would that also include legislators? And one of the reasons, and what I'm specifically thinking of is I would really like targeted specific education just for legislators so they can kind of learn together, because I think we need it.
I'm fine with that. I don't have, we can update that accordingly, and I'll put staff and legislators. Yeah. I mean, if the committee wants to do that, this is really a document for you, and happy to make the appropriate language. So, yes.
I think we should also do that.
Okay.
And what's the current budget for that? What's, just a minute, Leslie, what's the thought about what kind of planning, what kind of trainings would there be? How many would there be, and everything else? And what's the size of them?
Henry, you cut out. Did you guys haven't cut out? Did you guys hear everything you said?
Well,
I didn't.
I was wondering about the, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, what's the, because there's almost a third of the budget, what's the trainings that you anticipate having for the LGBTQ funding?
Well, I would anticipate that we would, one, I think it would be a discussion for this committee, first of all. That was based upon two things. Reason why that's still there is because last year, this committee said they would like to see more training based upon a training that was held prior. I don't know what that training was. And so, because I've heard it lifted multiple times, we can do that. So, but I would say that we have engaged we worked with Luca Maurer throughout the county in multiple departments over the last year. Yeah. And so there's been like 7 or 8 different discussion and touch points that we've had. Or another example that actually the Human Resources Department will be doing some foundations training specifically related to the LGBTQ plus population from recruitment to onboarding forms, all those different things that we need to have in a specialized way from that employee experience. So those are kind of the targeted outreach related departments that have been happening. I would assume, because it's been a little bit, that the workforce will need a refresher, knowing that I would look at some specific work related to some transgender and identity topics that need to be covered based upon my feedback that I get as Chief Equity University Officer. So that would be.
So the funding was based on the prior trainings. That's what the estimate is. Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Leslie? Leslie?
You were kind of muffled again.
Yeah, he could. Yeah, I don't know if he heard you.
Leslie?
Did you say me? Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Henry. Thank you all for putting the budget together. You know, there, if I want to talk just a little bit about training, there's been lots of trainings that we have done. But the last time we did a countywide training where we also invited city and nonprofit organizations and town of Ithaca, other municipal folks to participate. Our focus was on hiring and supporting members of our trans community in the workplace. And so we did a sort of a phase 1 of that training through with the Out Alliance out of Rochester. They did a fantastic job. And then phase 2 of the training really was going to build on the foundational work that was done and move towards really more in-depth training for people at supervisory levels. So everybody on my screen is frozen, so I don't even know if y'all are hearing me. Somebody say something.
We can hear you.
Can hear you.
You're hearing me? Okay.
You're fine,
Can hear
Leslie.
you.
Everybody's frozen. So that was, thank you. So that would have been the next phase of the training. And then of course, COVID hit and, you know, things didn't happen. But just as a refresher, we were really focusing on the members of our trans community and how to make sure that our employers are complying, are supporting, are working, integrating and working well, because that was an area that a lot of our supervisors had said, we don't know, you know, how to work with our trans community members. And so we did that training, and that was part 2 was what was going to be next on that. Outside of that, we have done several other foundational trainings across the organization for everything diversity, equity, and inclusion, from the very basic to the talking circles, in exploring our own internal biases, etc. So, I would really like to promote, push, make sure that phase 2 of the training I mentioned gets done, because I think it is needed. The other thing that I want to ask Henry, Annie, and Veronica, who are on here, doesn't the legislature have training monies that the legislature can have put into having some focused training for themselves? Because I would hate to spend this money on just legislators, and then we have a whole workforce and contract agencies who we deal with who don't get to benefit from it.
Why don't we ask Miss Ruby, who is on the line, about the training funding, or Lisa?
So I can speak to, I mean, I know that the legislature as a department has training funds available for an annual allocation available. And my understanding is often that's used by individual legislators to attend conferences, such as the recent NISAC conference. There is training funding available for all employees through the HR department for if there are trainings that go beyond departmental budgets, what departmental budgets can support. So oftentimes those training funds are called upon by employees or departments for additional training support.
So maybe that's the place, because I know we put quite a lot of money in HR, and I was there, I don't know what happened now, but it might be a place to look for training that's specific or exclusive for legislators.
Rachel, why don't I go to Veronica? Oh, okay. Rachel?
You can go ahead and get Veronica first. That's
Okay.
fine. That makes sense.
Oh, just briefly on that, my understanding, I want someone to correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding was we had legislators each had what Lisa mentioned, this like conference training fund allocated to each of us. But I think, which we could use for something like that. Like I want to go to Facing Race and I want to pay for it out of that and not WDIC funds. Can figure that out later. But I don't think it would work to make legislators do a training that they don't choose themselves out of that money. I'm guessing, correct me if I'm wrong. Like, I think everyone's expecting to be able to get to choose what they use their $1,000 or whatever it is toward if they want.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's external training and internal training. And the external training budget is the budget that we set up. And that perhaps we could set up an internal training budget that Anne would be talking about in terms of doing things internally. And that maybe we can take that out of contingent fund or whatever, or it would be separated from the traveling budget. And
Thanks. Yeah, I also like, the idea. I think that's more, I think it's more fair for the training that legislators received to be out of another fund. And I'm flexible on where that comes from, but I think, not having it come from WDIC makes sense. I would like to see that focused on staff and management. I guess I'm just thinking of whether it's in our goals or somewhere just to make sure that you know, it comes from the top. Our culture comes from the top on down. And so I don't want it to be an afterthought. We need training. We need training in lots of things at the very basics of a lot of diversity issues. And I just that's just my what I want to I guess get across today is I don't think we should put it off however we put it in as somehow as a goal somewhere that it's done first, because I think we undo a lot of things when we don't have that. We're trying to educate everybody else, and we don't even have a basic understanding or education on some of these things as we're, you know, developing policy and working on different things within the county.
Well,
thank you for that, and I appreciate your insights on that as always. And this is going to be a little bit self-serving considering my function, but I'd also love to see appointed advisory board members such as myself included in the groups of folks who have opportunities to participate in learning how to understand issues better and thereby enhance our service to the community and the legislature.
yeah, and that's one of the goals that we've identified, is to maybe do some diversity training for advisory people. But before I can talk to leadership, and maybe Deanna and I can talk to leadership about your idea, but why don't we go to Lisa?
Thanks. I just want to say to Ann's point is well taken, and that typically if we were to arrange a training, an organization-wide training for staff and management or supervisors, I think your point is well taken too, that our legislators, our policy-making body should be included in that training, and hopefully we would be able, with whomever we're arranging the training with, to negotiate or talk about the best way to provide that training, and if it would be separate training sessions for management, for frontline supervisors, for staff, for legislators, and so that we could incorporate it into a package and not have individual staff or legislators have to pay for the training out of the other designated training funds. So we would try to get certainly the best package available, and try to figure out the best way of delivery that would be most effective.
I like that. If I could just jump in, and then it would be consistent of
Yes.
what everybody's getting at. Thank you.
Yes.
And I know that I'm on the STPB and also the DIA. The DIA has had diversity training a couple of months ago. The STB is working on diversity training now with a group that they're using. And so maybe, again, that we can talk to leadership about leaders, about supervisory trainings that we could accomplish. And Leslie, is your hand down?
No, it's up, but Rachel has been waiting.
Okay, Rachel, you've been very patient. Thank you.
Yeah, so I just have a quick question about the phase 2 of the LGBTQ plus training. My understanding was that the Out Alliance is no longer. So does anybody know of the people that put that training on for that organization, if they've moved to another organization that maybe does similar work? Because they really did such a great job with that. That first one was great. Everybody loved it.
I can speak to that. That organization, as far as I'm aware, is still in some stage of not fully functioning in the community. They have somewhat of a presence, but I'm not sure that they have staffing. So I know that there are other trainers and other providers that we can look to and I in the past have started assembling a list, and Deanna may have some as well, and Ruby, so we can put our heads together for other options. I agree, they were fantastic. I was sorry to see that we couldn't look to them for stage 2.
Yes,
So
they're
we
very
have-
good.
We have a list of a working repository of trainers, and also one of the things that, as we build a more reflexive organizations, I'm trying to get create like trainers in residence almost program for our organization, so that when our employees work with different, we want to work with different companies, organizations, individuals, but then sometimes things get deeper into the roots, and that's what we're trying to do. And so trying to establish long-standing relationships with trainers as one of the goals, so that as when they come back to our organization, it's not like this introduction, they're getting comfortable again, they're getting to build relationships with folks. And so we're trying to build them out by all the dimensions of equity. And that's something that is in my work plan to continue to build. And so I'm confident that we can come together on a list of potential options.
Yes, and to answer Kate's question in chat, I assume we could, in fact, not jump into part 2, because it has been 4 years since the last training was held. And many people have changed over time in terms of employment here. And so hopefully we can maybe go back to 1.2, 1.1, or 1.5 in terms of the training. And Leslyn, did you have your hand up or not? Okay. So yeah, why don't we again, why don't Deanna, I, and maybe Lisa talk to leadership about it, and we'll report back next month. Any and also we could probably have some flexibility in the budget for maybe like the Heritage Months. In fact, maybe do more training and funding, and so that's a possibility. Any other questions or comments about the draft budget? Okay, why don't we take the
If we have money left over at the end of the year again, can we throw a diversity gala?
Well, we used, as Leslyn said, we used to have food at these meetings, and so that the food disappeared. And so I don't know whether we may request a significant increase for food in the budget, but Leslyn.
Rob, I'm with you, man. I've been trying to put on a gown, some combat boots, and show up for a gala somewhere, and a king's crown, because I don't like the tiaras, but but nobody is having one.
I've got tiaras covered, Leslyn. Don't you worry about that.
Yay, go ahead. I'm looking at the budget. I mean, and I wonder about something that I think was incredibly useful, and that was and Lisa Kidd, you can correct me if I'm wrong, and that was the legislature department heads and top level supervisors advance, not retreats according to Shelley Michelle, but advances that we used to have at Rice Conference Room. We'd have 2, I believe, per year. One was just focused on sort of general organization stuff, and then we'd focus the other one on diversity, equity, inclusion, the issues. Whether it was, everything from understanding what sort of trainings we need, or understanding what sort of concerns have been within the organization that we're addressing, blah, blah, blah. I found them to be really useful when we did them. And I just wondered if maybe there's a place for that. It included food. because they were always after hours and good discussion. I don't know where something like that would fit, if anybody is even interested in sort of doing stuff like that again, as I thought it brought the leadership in the organization on all levels together in a meaningful and productive way.
I know that just before the pandemic hit, Jason was scheduling in advance of all the supervisors. Obviously the pandemic hit and that went away. I assume that can be dropped in Lisa's lap to be as an idea of maybe what she wants to do.
I mean, it doesn't have to. I just brought it up as something that, like I said, I found useful. I don't know if Kit or Lisa had any thoughts around it.
Yeah.
Especially around the DEI part.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up, Leslyn. And it is something I think when we were having them regularly and we were focusing on topics like DEIJ topics in particular, it helped to bring us more in alignment with each other. It also provided an opportunity and a forum for people to get to know each other, not on the floor of the legislature. And I think that there is value in that piece, a lot of value in that piece, which can then help move forward the other pieces. So I just wrote it down, and thank you for bringing that back up as something to think about in the coming months.
I was having a hard time remembering it, but I think I sat next to you last time, Leslyn. So I think I do remember us talking about different ideas. So yeah, I mean, I think that it would be helpful. We are, we at Social Services are fortunate that we have a couple of state funding options. And so we have been able to, like throughout the pandemic, we have actually been doing a pretty intensive training program with staff on implicit bias training. And that's been really a great process for us. I completely agree about getting back to things like the transgender focused training. We had done some of that with Luca before Luca decided that he wasn't going to be doing that in the future. And I think that the group out of Rochester is great, but I think there's got to be another option for how we can move that forward. So, yeah, I think any of those things to be able to think it all through together is great. And maybe, I don't know, maybe we want to do the food thing and all come together in that way. Maybe we want to do more of, this kind of format where we discuss. I don't know what makes sense, but I'm open.
I just wanted to put that out there because as Lisa said, I think if we're talking inclusion and equity throughout an organization and folks are aligned, it really sort of makes for smooth sailing, understanding and acceptance of what it is we're doing versus, our staff work on something and bring it to the legislature and the legislature rips it apart or vice versa, any number of things. I think around the, inclusion and equity stuff, it was very, very useful. So I'm gonna think about it. We've got leftover monies and I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay. Well, I'd like to maybe just entertain a motion to approve the 2002 work goals and 2002 budget for the WDIC.
Also move.
Rob moved. Any seconds? And seconds, any discussion? Okay, can I have yes votes, yays?
Yay.
Yay, okay, any nays? Passes unanimously.
And Henry, if I may, I would say as we'll work through the budget, and as the committee, if you decide something different, I know you'll let me know, and then we'll adjust, accordingly, because galley, see what we can do. And so because it's not, it's, the budget is located physically, specifically in county administration, we have flexibility there. And so this document is more for accountability to us. So as we start moving down the goals and things like that, this is what we've committed to. But as we need to make adjustments, we'll do that. And so I would consult with Henry and Rachel and say, what do we need to do with the committee if we make changes?
And just for the gala, Dr. Clark, wasn't HLC supposed to look at it during the gala in the last couple of years?
Yes, there's been some discussion. They have not yet come to, it hasn't come to fruition as of yet, but it's still something that the commission would like to do. We've been having some periods of flux in terms of membership. And, what happened? Gosh, what's going on?
Are you back, Reverend Clark?
Not back yet, not in terms of my screen. But something's going on my computer.
We can see you, but there's a noise coming from your computer.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the screen is just gone black. And so
Okay, well, basically they're looking into it.
yeah. Okay, I'm back. I don't know what happened there, but but I've watched episodes of The Twilight Zone, so so
There's just a glitch in the matrix.
yes. So yeah, but that's not become concrete yet.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
For you people who are interested in galas. Next is a DIEJ Strategic Planning Committee update. And I'm not sure who's going to do that, whether it be Kate, whether it be Deanna, who will be giving the update?
Yeah.
Hey, you want to go?
Nope, you go for it. I support you.
Thank you. I feel the love, right? The Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Justice Strategic Planning Committee has met, I think, 3 times to date. And I believe Kate provided the update the last meeting. We said we'd bring back a work process for the committee, and that document was shared. And so I can share screen with you, just so you know what we intend to do or how we'd like to move forward with steps. And so I'll just share with you the planning phases that we're thinking about, knowing that this will be an iterative process and we will make adjustments accordingly. And we will move from there. And then I look forward to, I would say, 100% participation in this plan. So thank you to those who have already volunteered for the subcommittee. And then those of you that I will be contacting, everybody on this committee, everybody that I can see and not see will be contacted. So, here is so in terms of our strategic planning process, we always lead with our values and then our diversity statement. And again, the committee our WDIC just adopted last year. In terms of strategic planning, we would have our steps for strategic planning with the data gathering and organizational assessment. He said specifically, who are we? What is Tompkins County? What data do we have? What do other municipalities know? What do other organizations know? What internally and externally in terms of data? What information do we need to compile to understand what is happening? So specifically around some of these steps, we'd identify system reports. We already know we have some system challenges of pulling that information to derive whatever data that we can from those processes. Also, from an environmental assessment perspective, we'd also look at, again, those larger employers, some of the data looking to census information, to compile information, to create a report. So then also as a part of this, we'd have a qualitative portion as well, which would include This will also include working with departments specifically, then engaging our advisory boards from a community perspective, and then also targeting some specific external groups around getting feedback around the perceptions of Tompkins County. Then we would work on compiling and completing some of, after that, first step would be compiling all of the data and assessment portion into a summary. Then from there, we start compiling and completing the plan based upon the data that we receive. How do we identify shared language? What is the language we want to indoctrinate as we move forward? Indoctrinate, I know, can have a negative connotation, but I'm saying in terms of value and culture, what do we mean when we talk about diversity? We all have different definitions of that so that we can have shared language and understanding. Then looking at our organizational goals, what metrics do we want to set and what strategies do we need to do that work? And we compile another summary to start drafting that information. Then we take the data and the goals and the strategies, and then we would take this back out to the workforce and community and looking at having some peer-to-peer forums, hosting organizational town halls, posting on Q markets, and then going to businesses, going to the chamber, going to different places where they're willing to listen to what we're talking about, going to Southside, partnering with GIAC, all those different organizations, how they're experiencing the county in terms of service delivery area. And then from there, we would want to synthesize all of that feedback from the plan, and then we would want to finalize that plan and bring it back to this committee, knowing that every month you'll receive an update on the process, and so you'll be very, very involved in the inner workings of how this will go. And then we draft a resolution and press legislative approval. And then from there, we would come back to this committee as a part of this work is to confirm implementation oversight. And so this group would have to tackle where do we want to start implementation process, knowing that there will be certain things that have already started and there are certain things we have to move forward. But this will be some of the steps that we will work through, and also knowing this as the draft, continue to add to, and I'll continue to share this document saying where we are, giving status updates to the organization on where we are in the planning process. And so I'm trying to keep it simple as possible, knowing that we'll continue to add more and more components to it, but then also not to overwhelm people in sharing the steps, the processes. And this is just, again, this update is in addition to what was provided last month to our committee, knowing these will be the next steps to be followed. Do I have any questions?
I have a question about the data collection. I know that Ruby's office has challenges. How are you going to address those challenges in terms of data collection?
That might become a goal. That's what it's going to come. I can tell you now. Well, we'll have what we have, right? And we'll, we use the reports that we have. We also know that that's a problem, so that will be the goal, and as to address our reporting system on some of these issues.
Okay.
Anybody else? Does it make sense? Let me ask that question. Does the process make sense for what we intend to do? Veronica, what do you think? I feel like I should ask Veronica because Veronica's looking.
Honestly, that went by way too fast for me to really take in.
Okay.
And I'm gathering that me personally taking it in is not the point of it coming into the meeting now, but take my silence as I don't understand enough to ask questions, and I will follow up later.
Okay. And also, I'll send it back out, and I know that our committee has a shared document, knowing that this committee meets every month at a finite period of time. We are trained professionals to give brief updates to talk to you. But we're happy to share. And also, Veronica, there's another time where usually just sit and talk through this, or maybe you want to come to one of our planning meetings. We're happy to, you're welcome to come along, because if you're on this committee, I already feel like you're a part of the planning group, even if I haven't seen you yet. So I just want you to know we look forward to your invaluable input.
Sure. Well, I'll follow up with you later about that.
Yeah, I think people were a bit overwhelmed. Maybe we can take a look at it and then get back to you.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And then our planning committee will meet again. Let me ask this question. I will send this out. Can we give this committee like a week's deadline to try to get back to us? Because then the planning committee will try to meet again, right? We're trying to do things two ways, right? We're trying to meet as committee, and the committee, by the way, are a group of WDIC members, like it's 4 of us, 4 or 5, for a meeting. They were bringing information back to this group and then looking for your support and then continuing to the next steps. And so happy to share, give a week or two if that works, Henry, saying, please ask questions around this. We can add more things. And then I tried to create a simplified version so that it wouldn't be too much, knowing that the process will be very robust.
Sure, a week's time would certainly be adequate. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, why don't we move on to team goals for Team Jedi 2022?
Okay, thank you.
And is that Rachel or is that Deanna?
Anybody's welcome to. Rachel, do you want to say anything? Or I can.
I don't have the document on my screen to share it, but I've got it printed in front of me.
So what I can do is Team Jedi will meet tomorrow. They have, similar to some of the goals from last year, they're carrying on new goals. They're creating new goals, but also carrying on some goals from last year. I will also send this to you all. The only reason why I hadn't sent it out to the final group is because they haven't met one last time, which is tomorrow, but I'm happy to just briefly share it on the screen in case there are any tweaks to the goals for Team Jedi. Just like a lot of folks have been out, various things have happened. It's multiple pages. And so, Veronica, I won't even attempt to talk through this with you because this is, you're going to be like, if you thought that was a lot, this is like 7 pages, but I'm happy to share this with you. So, these are just the vision statement, the role of Team Jedi. Here are committees, but each committee has their own set of goals. And also, once we develop the strategic planning process, some of these things will fold into the strategic planning process. And so we're just building a foundation around these things, knowing that there are certain things that each committee is committed to. So within our 5 committees, there's just a lot of different things. And so I don't want to keep scaring anybody by sharing screen here, but there's a lot of work happening in Team Jedi that, again, some of the goals, what we've asked for Team Jedi to do was sort of large system changes. Like I said, let's hold some of those things for strategic planning discussion so we don't create barriers or create duplicative processes. At the same time, the things that we can do that won't be an issue, let's work on those. And so I'll be happy to send that information to you as well. So they'll be finalized, but also to our work with here specifically, we'll continue to support the recognition work like we have, and the goals as well. And more importantly, there are no conflicts. And so the Team Jedi is here to support WDSC as we can, and we'll continue to move those goals along. And so I will make sure all of those are there. And go ahead.
Well, when you talk about strategic planning, are you talking about work goals, or are you talking about a strategic planning plan that they're going to documents they're going to prepare?
I'm saying that we have to do multiple things at once, right? Because we have to do the planning process, but also Team Jedi has things that they want to work on so that their committee is not stagnant. Specifically, the data and assessment committee will be working with the strategic planning committee directly. But then there are other things that are around training. For example, like you talked about, the training committee knows that there are certain things that they can move ahead on. So those are some of the things, but also improving some of our communications around diversity, equity, and inclusion. We want to have all of those be working in alignment as well. So it's a multi-pronged approach, but they all funnel back up to the legislature. So I'm just trying to make sure that as this group does all of this, this goes back to WDIC and the ledge. Team Jedi is doing this. This all rolls back up. So I'm just making sure that there's no conflicts there, and that there's synergy, and that we are supporting each other in our work.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, moving on. We move on to the workforce book group. I wonder who would talk about that.
Well, Dr. Clark and Rachel are in the workforce reading discussion program. Tell us about the conference. They're in there. Y'all want to give the update? Come on.
Well, we've been reading a book by Heather McGee called The Sum of Us: What Racism Cost Everyone and How We Can Prosper Together. And so we're in week 3, and in which we've covered several topics. Today we talked about the impact of labor and the ways in which, even in terms of organizing labor, that there are challenges and there are perceptions that exist even in, in with regard to labor, that reflects a difference between, say, vulnerable communities and majority white populations at times, in which there's a perception by some of those whites that to become part of a union means you give up something, you lose something. It's, to move toward an inclusive type of union presence and organizing means that, there's, something gained, something lost, so it's this, and the book in large measure deals with the way in which racism it perpetuates this zero-sum game. That, a gain is perceived as a gain in one place, particularly in relation to diversity, is perceived as a potential loss. And so, but it's been a very good read and some very lively discussion. Rachel, you have things to add?
Yeah, I'd just add that I am really happy that we joined with the city this time. Meeting some new people is nice, and learning about some of the work that they're doing. But also I've done some of these before where people didn't really want to participate a whole lot, and that's not happening this time. There's a lot of really great participation. And sometimes I feel like the facilitator is kind of like pulling people to, speak, and it's been really, really good conversation.
Yeah. And it's, and it too, one of the thrust of the book, and it's reflected in the subtitle, is the way in which, that racism is sort of an all-consuming illness. I mean, it impacts not only the victims of racism, but the perpetrators, and how, it undermines community. It's contradictory to what the nation likes to understand itself to be. And so it is, it is not, it's something that has a larger social and cultural cost, and even political cost than many realize.
They make like critical race theory?
What's that?
You mean like critical race
Yeah,
theory?
right. Yes, which is being taught in public schools. Which we know it's not being taught in public schools.
Yeah, right.
That all sounds very interesting, and thanks for the update. And I really appreciated you mentioning, the circling the theme of zero sum, which I think is like that psychosocial phenomenon, particularly the haves feeling a sense of loss when the have-nots get anything, is something that it's really important for us to think about whenever we're working in public policy to advance a more equitable society, because so much of the pushback that we have against corrective public policy comes from that internal lens on access. That so long as we stay mindful of that, that is something that we can address and have conversations about, rather than just get engaged in fights over who's for and who's against.
How many weeks is it going total? And what's the total number of people
Next
who have
week
been
is
enjoying it?
Next week is the final week. These are 4-week sessions as it was last year, and we have 15 participants. And so, I mean, the cap number is 15, which is good for a reading and discussion group. And I mean, at least, as long as I have been working in the county since 2017, that's been the standard pretty much in terms of prior reading and discussion groups.
So this year we increased the number of people, just so you know, just in transparency, to up to 25, because we had 15 people for the county and we had 10 people for the city, because the city had sent their own so the doctor comes out, and we kind of increased the number of books we bought. So we had 20 people sign up in total.
Oh.
So, and then a couple people had to leave or come and go, like literally some people were out of the country. So I didn't want to tell them they couldn't participate.
Sure.
And I had several people email, but we have 20, I think 19 or 20 people registered in total for this.
Oh, great. Okay, well, thanks for the correction.
Sure, no problem.
And so in the future, you think you'll be able to have like 20 to 30 people in the group?
It's a difficult thing, the larger the group gets. And I can tell you, we had to have several discussions about how that would work, including the city. And I think that it's worked really well in having different perspectives. I think that is really, our employees, the Tompkins County employees, have really appreciated being able to dialogue with the city employees. And I think that it's made it better. And so we might need to do more than one session or do something a little differently. I don't see a session being 30 people or one group, but we could do more than one session. That could be the case, and then have it going in multiple ways.
Leslie?
As you can imagine, it warms my heart that it continues and it's growing. One of the things that when we first started this is in New York State Humanities grant, Paula Young and I, put our heads together, we've written, gotten a grant to move the program along. And, a thought, this is just a thought, and you don't have to talk about it now, is what happens when folks are done with their 4 weeks of conversation. And the idea when we started this is that eventually we'll have enough resources to allow for continued small group conversations. If people want to, we'll help facilitate people having those conversations over coffee, over whatever it is. So I'd love to see this evolve to a new level. It's great to see it evolve, including city employees at this point, but just to keep in mind, growing it to a place where the conversation doesn't stop at the end of 4 weeks or 5 weeks, that there is really built in mechanisms and structures for continued conversations with the folks who have been participating.
Yeah, I know that Ruby had brought that up in terms of setting up things. Have you guys thought about having something after the book group, like a couple of months later, and having a discussion group?
Yes, we have. I said, Leslie, that's before we even started this year. That was the first thing we talked about. And since this is my first time doing it, I want to see how it went, and then take from what we go and then identify what are they asking for from this group, and then how do we continue to strengthen those who participated, but then also add more people if they're interested, if it is a little different, because we'll have to because there will be things that they've heard, and as we engage different or new people, we'll need to make sure they have the same learning along the way. And so being able to stretch the program and make it more elastic, so that we're again becoming a learning culture, or learning differently than we have in the past. Whereas Rachel said that I still stuck with me, unlearn the things. I think you said that in my very first Jedi meeting. How do we unlearn the things that we don't need and learn the things that we do need? And so, yes, I'm sure we'll do something. And I'll bring that back and say, this is what we heard from the reading group, and then figuring out how we can do a couple more things between now and the end of the year. And then Ruby said, she's not an official member of WDIC, but Ruby's on here and she can hear us. And so, Ruby, even if your face is not on screen, you're still here with us. So yes, Leslie, we can do that.
Deanna, Deanna thinks we're interchangeable. Everything she's working on, you can rest assured that I'm somewhere around. Bye, girl.
And
again, it's not something that you have to do now. I just want to make sure that is still sort of there for future. That's all.
No, and we appreciate it, but it's something that we agree with, and I don't think it'd be, even if it's not the full program, it's like anything you do. It's one of the challenges I have with Team Jedi. I always are like, okay, we did this training, we had this learning. What experiences are they having that this becomes a normal behavior, as opposed to a year ago, someone said X, Y, and Z to me. I don't remember how to respond. I don't know what to do. And so I think that's thank you for making sure that we're growing.
What, do you have a plan yet for doing more than one a year?
No, I'm not saying we can't. I am just saying we don't have. This is my first program, and so my
Right.
thinking was, how does this go? Do we think this is a valuable thing for the workforce? In other words, the workforce reading and discussion program may have been something that the employees wanted to do 10 years ago. For example, how are they receiving it today? And so, then what do we need to do next? And so we could do more, but there is, and Henry, I say this to you in the spirit of love. There is one here that I will do as much as I can. But I am committed to learning, training, and growing and making sure that our workforce has what they need. But if we take our show on the road, if we have some more WDIC members who may we could partner on some of this stuff, I'm happy to work on some.
Rachel?
Yeah, I would say more than focusing on doing more than one, trying to get different people involved and active in it, because it's a lot of the same people, I think, that do it each time, and they might not be the people that we really need there. Not that we don't want them there and their participation isn't appreciated and amazing, but I think if we're doing it in the spirit of, expanding people's minds and getting people to look at things in a different lens than they otherwise normally would, trying to just get the word out more to get more interest from a different set of people.
Well, as we think about this, one of the things that I would like to do is a department-specific work, because part of the challenge is when you have a workforce thing, that's assuming workforce is available in the same time. So the reason why we're doing it over the lunch hours, so people can eat and meet at the same time. So, for example, I would love to do some work in facilities, but it may look different. So one of the times when facilities staff would be available, whether it's a staff meeting, they'd be willing to appropriate 30 to 45 minutes so we could go there specifically. That's how we have to do more specific targeted outreach for something like that to work, which I am supportive of. But I know that in terms of the workforce reading discussion program, it has to be by, I think we use the word cabinet or topical groups that have like or similar orientations or scheduling or ability to do the work together. And that's the way we could reach more people, because that is the challenge here structurally, to be able to do a lot of these things, knowing that some people, or even if we think about our sheriff's office or our road patrol, they may not, third shift. And so how do we reach the, different parts of our organization to help them move along? And that's what like a hope is for Team Jedi in the next year and a half, is if you're in that department, how do you start doing some of this work specifically and customized in that area so that we can have more programming that it goes broader.
Leslie?
I have nothing profound, except I would like to see what's on Rachel's shirt. It's all in the chat, and I don't know what's on her shirt. I can't
Led
see
Zeppelin. It just says it's a Led Zeppelin shirt.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The best rock and roll band ever.
So what songs do they have?
Better
Can you give me
than
some?
the Stones?
Yes.
Yes.
Lisa Holmes,
Better
New
than
County
the
Administrator.
Beatles?
Okay.
So actually what I really wanted to say is the reading and discussion program, talking about, diversity, and particularly it started so that we can have conversations around race and racism. And then we added, many of the other social concerns to it, because we know we needed to talk about them. It started out as just another safe space for folks who weren't comfortable being out in a big public training or a larger training setting to have that conversation. Like, I'm naive about, what racism really looks like or means, and I don't want to feel stupid in this large training. So we created this smaller setting, intimate setting where people can feel a little more comfortable, just as another option for that to happen. Not anybody having to, it may not transform, somebody's thinking or anything, but it might just give them a place to explore a little bit more where they are and feel comfortable without feeling like someone is really going to bash you in some way, shape, or form. And that was something we heard. I just wanted to share that.
Okay.
Yeah, as I'm just kind of sitting here thinking about this, I'm thinking like we were talking about like sort of countywide trainings and making sure that, we were having everyone from top down into it. And I think that's a really good thing. I think it makes it equitable and fair. Everybody's got a base language, but I'm wondering too, if part of that is that if there's not, kind of like playing on what Leslie just said, if there's not ways to get people engaged, maybe setting in a training isn't their thing, right? But maybe giving them the option to do a book club would be a better option, so that you may get people who would not necessarily sign up for it, but for them, that's a better place or an easier place to have some of those conversations. So maybe there would be 1 or 2 ways to check that box. Just something to think about.
Are you going to extensively survey the people after the book club is ended? And also maybe you can have a buddy program where the same people come in. What?
We're not hearing you well. You don't move your head. Just
okay. And maybe have a buddy program where somebody who goes every year brings in a buddy to the book club.
Yes. Well, actually, the county has a new buddy program for supervisors. Ruby, can you talk about the buddy program? Ruby's gonna kill me.
I sure am. The buddy program is specifically for onboarding purposes. Now, if they want to, we need to get them on board with the onboarding purposes before we expand their duties.
But we can come up with something. But I was just
you come up with something else, and don't call me.
I'm just talking about the book club, where if the same
Henry.
7 people,
and that's Deanna.
Right. The same 7 people keep coming. Well, maybe you can have 5 of them say, look, and bring a buddy along to join the book club and get exposure to it. That you can encourage.
One of the persons that participating does bring a buddy along, so it's getting there.
Okay.
Yes. I did. So I brought Ruby. Ruby came this year, but she's the HR commissioner. But there were a couple of new faces, and it was one thing that I can tell you that I have experienced through watching the experience of her. There are a couple of people who have differing opinions there. You can tell there's a couple of different things. And I think by having them participate in the program year after year, it's actually helping them, and you can see them growing. And so that has been a positive effect of the program, knowing that we do want to grow the number of people who are participating in the program. And so absolutely we should, but we also did have some new people. And then also I did receive several emails from different employees that, man, if there wasn't a commitment to doing it every week for a month, I might do it. So that's another thing we may think about doing it, not every week for a month, but maybe every couple of weeks or maybe once a month over a multi-month period of time. So that's also some of the data so that we can get better participation. So if they know they have to do it once a month instead of 4 straight weeks, that's probably a change that I'll look at making next year.
Yeah, when you were talking about road patrol, I was thinking that you could perhaps do a lunch thing where you have a 5 or 10 page piece and doing it over that. I mean, again, just a suggestion.
Oh, no, thank you. And I'll just need authorization for food from the county administrator to feed anybody. But yes, I know I'm absolutely okay with that.
But yeah, but doing something short and sweet and doing it just for an hour or just for 45 minutes and just basically having a discussion. And I know that road patrol has to come because they're required to, but again, doing something like that as opposed to doing a full-on book club.
Thank you.
Yes. And now why don't we do any announcements, any updates from any agencies that want to say anything? Because we got about 6 minutes left. Leslyn?
Henry, I'm sorry, I know it was a little late. Did you do the Juneteenth resolution? Did the committee take that up?
No, we did not. Thank you. Let's do the Juneteenth resolution. Why doesn't somebody can I have a motion to approve the Juneteenth resolution?
My labor activist side has to be the one to move adding a new paid holiday.
Okay.
Please do.
Rob Brown moves, Kate Shanks
I'll-
moves seconds. Any discussion?
Yes. I would ask the author of the resolution to please add in there a whereas that indicates the federal government on June 17th declared Juneteenth as a federal holiday, meaning that federal employees get the day off, and that 8 states, including New York State and the District of Columbia, have all adopted Juneteenth as an official holiday where their employees get a paid day off as well. I think it's really important to acknowledge what has been happening in those states. Texas, of course, has been doing this since 1980 with New York, and we can highlight and whatever that whereas is if New York passed this in 2020. And,
Maybe we can also add that Cornell University and Institute College have also
yes.
added Juneteenth as a holiday.
So as we, so it's been collaborative effort. I wanted to share that Brittany, heck, she's a member of Team Jedi, and she mentioned adding a couple of things. Can I just share it with you really quickly? I think Leslie speaks to one of the points that you may will need to add a little bit more to it. So thank you, Brittany, for thinking about this. And Leslie, share screen. These are a couple of the ideas. She, to your point here, she had added this. We had already sent this out, and so I was going to bring it up here when we got to this point. But you also asked that we add the other states that honor or to have the time off as well. And so I will look for those numbers specifically to get in those states to get that added as well. And I think, Henry, you made another comment?
For now.
Yes, I said that Cornell and Institute College have also added, I don't know, has TC3 also made it a holiday too? Do you know, Leslie?
No, I only know of Cornell. I didn't know that IC had.
Yeah, IC has too. IC and Cornell have also made it private holidays.
I know that local school districts have as well, because I know Lansing and Ithaca have it off.
Well, why don't
Thank you, Brittany. That is correct.
Why don't we add those, and then we can clean up anything else before it goes to budget, capital, and personnel, and before it goes to the legislative floor.
So if the mover and seconder are okay with it going forward with those amendments, that'll be cool.
I would be happy to accept the friendly amendment. Thank you, Leslie.
Okay, and Kate? The second also accepts the friendly amendments. Any other discussion? Why don't we do a, are we ready to vote? Why don't we do an individualized vote? Leslie McBean Claiborne,
Yes.
Rachel Graham,
Yes.
Yes.
Kate Shanks Booth,
Yes.
Deanna Carrizes,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Reverend Ken Clark,
Yes.
Lisa Holmes,
Yes.
Veronica Pilar,
Yes.
Robert Brown,
Yes.
and the chair is also a yes. Passes unanimously.
Thank you. Who's going to be working on the changes? Because I have one other change that recognizes Tompkins County. Who should I get that to?
Get to Deanna or Brittany.
You
Okay,
can copy us both on the email, Leslin, if you'd like.
thank you.
Yeah, I'll also check on TC3 too.
And then I just want to let people know for announcements, this is the 50th anniversary of the founding of GAC. We were founded in 1972 to kick off our year-long anniversary celebration, you know, because I'm a partier. On April 4th, we are having a logo reveal party. We are updating our GAC logo. It will be on the Commons, 3:30, and we have a steel band from—
Any food?
It's GAC, Henry. What kind of question is
Of
that?
course.
What time did you say?
3:30 p.m. We have a steel band from the prestigious Oberlin College that will be here helping us to party and retire our old logo and reveal our new logo. So yes, a logo reveal. Please do join us.
Okay.
Just want to let everybody know that the Tompkins County Youth Services has pushed our RFP for 2023 funding out, and it should go live on the 24th. So if any 501c3 organizations, Tompkins County, that deal with youth development or runaway and homeless youth would like to apply, they can get a hold of me, and I'm happy to talk them through that process.
Okay. Well, seeing no other hands, why don't we have a motion to adjourn? Deanna, seconded by Leslin. All in favor?
Sure. See y'all next time.
Yep. And good day. Good meeting, guys. Thank you.
See you
Thank
next
you.
time.
Goodbye.
Take care. See you soon.
Henry, Annie, and Veronica, quick question, or even Brittany, did the legislature do anything on the don't say, Florida's Don't Say Gay bill? Did the legislature make any public statements or anything about it?
No.
Okay, just wondering.
I
haven't been following what you all are
mentioned
doing.
it in my personal privilege of the floor, but that wasn't
Okay.
anything.
Okay, thank you. That's it. Bye.